Yusek Bernardo.
Affidavit. I, Roberto R. Bernardo, Filipino, of legal age, a resident of Malolos City, Bulacan, under oath, deposed and state. In connection with the ongoing Senate Blue Ribbon Committee investigations, I intend to submit this affidavit which provides details of my knowledge about matters within my jurisdiction relating to flood control projects when I was still serving as Undersecretary for Operations of the Department of Public Works and Highways. This affidavit lays out details.
Sorry, excuse me. You have your counsel now with you?
Yes, sir. Yes, po,
Okay,
Mr.
on
Chair.
record. Okay.
This affidavit lays out details of the involvement of legislators as well as other government officials with a commitment on my part to expand these disclosures as my best recollection of facts and records may serve. Number three, since the received an invitation to appear in these proceedings, I began collating, vetting, and consolidating all written communications, documents, tables, and matrices, and lists in my possession, the retrieval of which has been difficult since I retired from public service last August 2025. With the benefit of more time and greater freedom to access files, I am confident that I can provide even more material and relevant evidence that would clarify the issues once and for all. Number four, more importantly, I am executing and submitting this affidavit with my full and absolute consent as an integral part of my application to be admitted under the Witness Protection Program through the favorable recommendations of the Honorable Chairman of the Blue Ribbon Committee, Senator Ping Lacson, and the Honorable Senate President Tito Soto under Section 4, as well as Section 10 of Republic Act Number 6981, otherwise known as Witness Protection, Security, and Benefit Act before the Department of Justice. I attest and confirm that the names, dates, and transactions mentioned hereunder are based on my direct personal knowledge and have ample documentary support where necessary or desirable if given full opportunity to retrieve the same. Background facts. I earned my bachelor's degree in Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering in 1984. I am a registered civil engineer by profession. In the year 1985, I began my 40-year stint in the DPWH as a laborer. I then climbed the ranks through the years as Associate Civil Engineer, Engineer 2, Engineer 3, and as Assistant District Engineer, Assistant Regional Director. I then became Assistant Regional Director CESO 4 sometime in 2012 until my appointment as Assistant Secretary in 2016. I finally became Undersecretary more than a year later and remained such until my retirement on August 2025. I met former District Engineer Henry Alcantara during my assignment in the Laguna 2nd District Engineering Office. Engineer Alcantara, Engineer Bryce Hernandez, Engineer J.P. Mendoza, and Engineer Algie Jumasig all belong to the Bulacan 1st DEO. 2020-2040 scheme. Sometime after the State of the Nation address of President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. in July 2025, and while I was already on sick leave, I heard from Secretary Bunoan for the first time that Engineer Alcantara, Engineer Hernandez, Engineer Mendoza, and Engineer Dumasig were engaged in contracting activities using the licenses of other contractors. Subsequently, Engineer Hernandez confirmed this arrangement through one of the legislative hearings and by other contractors whose license they used. According to Bryce Hernandez, their sharing is 20-20-20-40% from these activities. My understanding is that they had prepared and signed documents for purposes of collecting payments, which they then apportioned the profits amongst themselves. However, I must admit that I have no personal knowledge on the exact actions they took to accomplish this scheme, and I can only be asked general questions on the systems in place that would have allowed this modus operandi to happen. I categorically state that I have neither knowledge nor participation in these business activities, which were entirely done by Engineer Alcantara, Engineer Hernandez, Engineer Mendoza, and Engineer Dumasig on their own. Ghost projects. At about the same time, after the 2025 SONA, I also heard for the first time that aside from the 2020-2040 scheme, were flood control projects, ghost projects, for which Engineer Alcantara, Engineer Hernandez, Engineer Mendoza, and Engineer Dumasig were also responsible. These were confirmed later by Secretary Bunaan during a separate legislative hearings. I called up Engineer Alcantara to ask him about these flood control ghost projects. He denied any participation. Subsequently, he likewise told me that he even convened the officers of Bulacan First DEO to confront them about these ghost projects, and that some officers, it was Engineer Hernandez, who was the primary person responsible for the same. In the exact words of Engineer Alcantara, si Bryce po yan. I categorically state that I have neither knowledge nor participation in these flood control ghost projects. Congressman Zaldico. My personal knowledge regarding Congressman Zaldico are set out as follows. Congressman Zaldico one time called me to say that he met Engineer Alcantara and wanted to confirm, maayos bang kausap si Engineer Alcantara? To which I replied, maayos po. Engineer Alcantara then told me that Kong Zaldico was asking for a 25% commission, and out of that amount, 2% was to be shared equally between Engineer Alcantara and myself. In his exact words, boss, hati na tayo sa 2%. Furthermore, Engineer Alcantara would tell me every time that he made deliveries of cash to Congressman Zaldico in compliance with his commitment to Congressman Zaldico.